Convert the block to an SFG format and find the system transfer function. So from what we've been doing, firstly draw our nodes. So this for y1, for y2, for y3. So y1, y2, y3, y4, y5, y6, y7. And move this guy. So then the branches. So y1 is moving to y2, y2 is moving to y3, and between y2 and y3, we have g1. Then you have your feedback from y3 to y2. Yes. So this is minus h1. Then y3 is moving to y4. Between that is g or g2. y4 is moving to y5. y5 is moving to y6. Between your y4 and your y5, you have g3. Then y5 to y4 is your another feedback. That's negative h2. And show that one again. It's between y5 and y6, you have your g4. Then you have y6 to y7. There's nothing there, so it's 1. It's there. Then you have the feedback y7 to y6, negative h4. And your g5 is between y3 and y6. Which properly. So a g5, you have another feedback from y5 to y2, y5 to y2. So this is negative h3. So now we have gotten our signal flow drawing, which means to find your transfer function. But this side is also 1. So your first step finding it is to identify the forward path. Identify forward path. Your forward path and gain. The first forward pass is where y1 to y2 to y3 to y4. So these are your forward paths. Let's write it. y1 to y2 to y3 to y4. To y5 to y6 to y7. So first part, the gain will be 1 times g1 times g2 times g3. That will be g1, g2, g3, G form. That's because of, yeah. So the gain is along paths, the first path. The next forward path is from here, y1 to y2 to y3, then y6 to y7. So you have y1 to y2 to y3 to y6 to y7. So your part 2, the game will now be g1, g5 because of this g1, g5. Okay, moving forward, the next step is to identify all individual loops. Identify loop gain. Ha, ha, ha. Yes. Okay. The first loop, you have multiple loops. Okay. This is a loop. This is a loop. This is a loop. This is also a loop. Hmm. This is not a loop. Yeah. Wait. Okay. This is not a loop. That's because it's not going back. So it's not a loop. So let's write down our first loop and put the diagram so that you can see it. Yes. So we have our first loop. Our first loop is y2 to y3 to y2, y2 to y3 to y2. And the gain of our loop, L1, is equals to minus H1 G1. That's because of this. So this is our gain. Okay, our next loop is y4, y5, y4, y4, y5, y4. And our gain equals to this part and this part. That's minus H2 G3. Then on that loop we have y2, y3. So from y2 to y3 to y4 to y5, then back to y2. And our gain will be g1, g2, g3, then minus h3. And I can moving on. Our last loop, y6 to y7, back to y6. Loop 4 is minus h4. That's because it's just one that is here. Okay, moving on. The next step is to identify non-touching loop. So this one can be a bit tricky here because you have lots of loops. So let me drag this down so that we can see it. Okay. Identify non-touching loop. So and to explain this in a very simple way. So we have different loops, and the best way you can look at it is to have two non-touching loop, then three non-touching loop. So two non-touching loop, I mean this loop is not touching this loop, and this here is not touching this loop. And also this loop here is not touching this loop, and this loop is not touching this loop. So that's four non-touching loop. You can also look at it as three non-touching loop. Like we have one, two, three that are not touching. So let's get to work. Okay. Let me name the loop so that we can um follow suit. Yes. This is loop one, loop one. This is loop two. This is loop three and loop four. Okay. Now let's do for two non-touching. Okay, for the two non-touching, we have L1 and L2. We also have L1 and L4. We also have L2 and L4. Then we have L3 and L4. That's the last one. Okay. So we're going to multiply them together. So L1 times L2 from what we said here. So L1 times L2 will give us plus the minus and minus cancel. So you have G1, G3, G1, G3, H1, H2. For L1 and L4, minus 2 we cancel. We have G1, H1, H4. L2 and L4, same thing. G3, H2, H4. L3 times L4, you have G1, G2, G3, H3, H4. So let me explain it again. So we multiplied L1 times L2. L1 is a L1. Sorry, this is a L1. This part here is L1. This is a L2. Then for L1, L4, same thing. This side, this one, and this one. So I hope you understand. Okay. Now time for three non-touching loop. Three non-touching. You have L1, L2, and L4. L1 and L2 and L4. So multiplying them together, let me look at it from here. Then you still have a minus remaining because minus times uh okay, yeah, we all understand that. So minus times minus plus plus and minus will give you a minus. That's minus minus G1. I'm multiplying the gains first. Minus G1, G3, and forever. Then H1, H2, H4. We are done with the non-touching loops. And now it's time to find the graph determinants. Now we have to calculate the graph determinants. So let's calculate the total delta first. So total delta will be equals to 1 minus the brackets, then addition of all your gains plus the loop. So L1, L2. Let me write it. So we have minus G1 plus L2 plus L3 plus L4. That will be equals to 1 minus, what's the L1? Minus G1 H1 minus, what's the L2? G3 H2. Um, what's your L3? That is minus G1 G2 G3 H3. What is your L4? Minus H4. This will give equals to 1 plus G1 H1 plus G2 G3, sorry, H2 plus G1 G2 G3 H3 plus H4. Yes. Gotten our total graph determinants. Let's now find for each part. So our determinants for part 1. So let's look at the parts. So this is our first part. And like I've mentioned in the previous questions, if all the loops are touching the parts, the determinants will be equals to 1. Now for your second part, this is the second part. Now we have a loop that is not touching. This is your loop C. So your loop C is not touching. So we are going to have, let me write it down. The delta 2 will be equals to 1 minus loop 2. That will be equals to 1 minus G3 H2 equals to 1 plus G3 H2. Now that we have gotten our graph determinants, can then apply our Mason formula. Please. Applying Mason-Gaines formula. So transfer function now, y7 over y1 equals to p1 delta 1 plus p2 delta 2 over here, just plus delta 1 plus delta 2, everything like that, like that. This. Okay. Now that we have this, we can substitute it now. Now for P1, we have G1, G2, G3, G4. And our delta 1 is 1. Okay. Plus, what's our P2? G1, G5. And our delta 2 is 1 plus G3, H2. Everything over. What's the first delta? 1 plus G1, H1 plus G3, H2 plus G1, G2, G1, G2, G3, H3 plus H form. Um, I'm sorry, this was a mistake. It's meant to be plus your non-touching loops. So just take note of that. Plus, what's your first non-touching loop? G1, G3, H1, H7. V1, H1, H4 plus G1, H1, H4, G3, H2, H4, G3, H4 plus G1, G2, G3, H3, H4 plus G1, G3, G1, G2, G3, H3, H4. We minus, so minus G1, G3, H2, H1, H2, H4, H2, H4. Let me rearrange this properly. So this is your transfer function. You can decide to simplify it and you can stop here. But this is your final answer using signal flow graph. Thank you guys for joining in. See you next time.